If you found this video today, I want you to know that what I'm about to share is the kind of conversation I wish more men felt comfortable having, because it matters deeply and because the answer is so much simpler than most people realize. I'm Dr. Fernanda Oliveira, a board-certified urologist with over 15 years of experience helping men over 50 reclaim their energy, their vitality, and yes, their intimate health, naturally, without expensive medications and without shame. That is what this channel is built on. Honest, practical, science-based guidance that you can actually use starting tomorrow morning. So stay with me because today's topic is one that touches more men than you might imagine. My dear friend, let me ask you something. When was the last time you woke up with a strong, reliable morning erection? If the answer is, I can't remember, or if you've noticed that what used to happen naturally and consistently has become weaker, less frequent, or has disappeared almost entirely, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not alone, and there is nothing to be ashamed of. This is one of the most common things men quietly bring up in my office, often after months or even years of not mentioning it to anyone. They lower their voice, they look a little uncertain, and they say, "Doctor, is this just what happens now?" And every single time I tell them the same thing I'm going to tell you right now. No, it does not have to be. Millions of men over 50 are experiencing exactly what you are experiencing. And while age does play a role, I will always be honest with you about that. The biology of what is happening is far more nuanced than simply, you're getting older, this is normal, accept it. Because many of the factors driving this change are lifestyle related. They are nutritional, they are circulatory, and they are, in a very real and meaningful way, within your influence. That is the part most men never hear, and that is exactly what I want to talk about today. Now, here is the part that genuinely surprises most of my patients when I bring it up. The solution, or at least a significant piece of it, may begin at the breakfast table, not in a pharmacy, not in an expensive supplement stack, at breakfast. And the ingredient I want to tell you about today is something you may have walked past 100 times without giving it a second thought. But we'll get there. First, I need you to understand what's actually happening in your body, because when the science makes sense, the solution makes sense too. So let's talk about why morning erections change after 50, because understanding this is genuinely important. Morning erections, which doctors sometimes call nocturnal penile tumescence, are not random. They are a natural physiological process that occurs during sleep, driven by cycles in your nervous system and your hormones. And here is what makes them so clinically meaningful. Their presence, or absence, tells us a great deal about the health of your circulatory system and your nerve function. When a man is having strong, regular morning erections, it is generally a good sign that blood is flowing well, that the vascular system is responsive, and that the nerves involved in erectile function are communicating properly. When they begin to fade, it is often one of the earliest signals that something in that system is starting to need support. Think of it as your body's own daily health check, a quiet, automatic report on how your circulation is doing while you sleep. And if that report is starting to look different than it used to, it is worth paying attention to, not with fear, but with curiosity and intention. Now, what drives this change? Several things work together, and I want to walk you through them simply. The first is nitric oxide. We talked about this molecule in a previous video, but it is so central to this conversation that I need to revisit it. Nitric oxide is produced inside the walls of your blood vessels, and its job is to send a signal that tells those vessels to relax and widen. When nitric oxide is abundant and working well, blood flows freely into the tissue that makes an erection possible. The vessels open, blood rushes in, and the process works the way it's designed to. But here's the reality after 50. Nitric oxide production naturally declines with age. The cells that produce it become less efficient. And when that happens, even when the desire is present, the physical response can lag behind because the vascular signal simply isn't as strong as it used to be. Think of it this way. Imagine a garden hose that's being gently squeezed somewhere along its length. The water is still there, the pressure is still there, but the flow that comes out the other end is weaker than it should be. That is what reduced nitric oxide function looks like in the blood vessels that supply erectile tissue. The water, the blood, is available, but the pathway is restricted. The second factor is hormonal. Testosterone levels in men begin to decline gradually after the age of 30, slowly, quietly, in the background. By the time a man reaches his 50s and 60s, that cumulative decline can begin to affect libido, energy, mood, and yes, the frequency and strength of morning erections. Now, I want to be careful here because testosterone is a topic that gets a great deal of oversimplification. Low testosterone is not always the primary driver of erectile changes, and simply boosting testosterone is not always the answer. But supporting the nutritional environment that allows your body to maintain healthy hormone balance, that is something very much within reach. And the third factor, which connects everything together, is inflammation. I come back to this again and again with my patients because it is so pervasive and so underappreciated. Chronic low-grade inflammation, driven by diet, poor sleep, stress, and sedentary habits, directly affects the health of your blood vessel walls. Inflamed vessels are stiffer, less responsive, and less capable of the rapid dilation that healthy circulation requires. It is, to use an analogy I find helpful, like trying to bend a cold rubber hose. When everything is warm, flexible, and well-nourished, the system responds quickly and fully. When inflammation has made the walls stiff and sluggish, the response is slower, weaker, and less reliable. So we have three interconnected issues: nitric oxide decline, gradual hormonal shift, and vascular inflammation, all converging after 50 to produce the changes you may be noticing. And here is the genuinely hopeful part. All three of these systems respond to nutrition. They respond to what you eat, when you eat it, and what key nutrients you are or are not giving your body on a daily basis. Which brings me to the nutrient gap that I see in so many of my patients. Men who are otherwise careful about their health, who exercise, who try to eat reasonably well, and yet are unknowingly missing some of the most critical minerals for circulatory and hormonal health. The two I want to highlight specifically are magnesium and zinc. Magnesium deficiency is extraordinarily common in Western diets, and I mean that genuinely, not as a figure of speech. Many adults consume significantly less than the recommended daily amount, often without knowing it. And magnesium plays a direct role in blood vessel relaxation, in sleep quality, in nerve function, and in the cellular environment that supports nitric oxide production. Zinc, on the other hand, is deeply involved in testosterone metabolism. It is one of the key minerals your body uses in the process of producing and maintaining healthy testosterone levels. And just like magnesium, zinc is frequently depleted in men over 50, sometimes through diet, sometimes through the natural effects of aging on absorption, and sometimes as a side effect of medications that are commonly prescribed in this age group. I had a patient in his late 50s, fit, active, genuinely health conscious, who came to me frustrated because despite doing so many things right, he was still experiencing persistent fatigue and a significant decline in morning erections. When we looked more carefully at his diet, the pattern was clear. He was simply not getting enough of these key minerals consistently. His diet was not bad. It was just missing some specific things. And when we addressed that gap with targeted nutritional changes, the shift over the following weeks was meaningful. And the food that I pointed him toward, the one I recommend regularly to patients in this situation, is something so ordinary, so inexpensive, so easy to add to a morning routine that most people genuinely don't take it seriously at first. Raw pumpkin seeds. Just a tablespoon added to whatever you're already eating for breakfast. Oatmeal, yogurt, a smoothie, it doesn't matter. Because pumpkin seeds are one of the most concentrated natural sources of both magnesium and zinc available in a commonly eaten food. And beyond those two minerals, they also contain a meaningful amount of the amino acid arginine, which is a direct precursor to nitric oxide production in the body. Arginine is essentially the raw material your blood vessels use to make the molecule that opens them up and allows blood to flow freely. More arginine, better supported nitric oxide, healthier vascular response. Nitric oxide works like opening extra lanes on a highway so blood can flow smoothly. And pumpkin seeds give your body some of the key building blocks to keep those lanes open. That is why something so small and so simple can have a genuinely noticeable effect when used consistently over time. And as always, I want to be transparent with you. What I share here is meant to educate and support, not to replace your own medical care. If you are experiencing significant symptoms, if something feels wrong beyond what we're discussing here, please see a urologist or your physician. These are important conversations to have in person. Now that you understand what's happening in your body, why morning erections change, how nitric oxide, hormonal balance, and inflammation all play a role, and why specific nutrient gaps may be quietly working against you, I want to show you exactly how to address this step by practical step starting tomorrow morning. But before I do, there are several common mistakes that men make, even well-intentioned men who are already trying to eat better, that can completely undermine the benefits of everything I've just described. And one of them happens in the first meal of the day, every single morning, and most people have no idea it's doing damage. So let's talk about that first mistake, because this one genuinely catches people off guard, and it matters more than most men realize. The mistake is skipping breakfast entirely. Now, I understand the logic. Many men over 50 have heard about intermittent fasting, or they're simply not hungry in the morning, or they're busy and breakfast just doesn't happen. And while I am not here to tell you that intermittent fasting is always wrong, because that conversation is more nuanced than a simple yes or no, what I can tell you with confidence is this. When you skip breakfast consistently, you are asking your body to operate through the most hormonally active part of its day without any of the raw materials it needs to do so effectively. Here is what happens physiologically when you wake up and eat nothing. Your blood sugar, which has already been fasting for 7 or 8 hours overnight, continues to drop. Your cortisol, your primary stress hormone, which naturally peaks in the morning, has nothing to work against. And your body, in its wisdom, begins to prioritize survival functions over everything else. Circulation to non-essential areas becomes less robust. Hormone production gets deprioritized. Energy is rationed rather than generated freely, and that beautiful window of the morning, when your testosterone is naturally at its daily peak, when your body is primed and ready to respond, gets wasted in a kind of low-grade metabolic stress instead. I am not saying you need a large meal. I am saying that a small, thoughtfully composed breakfast, even something that takes 5 minutes to put together, can fundamentally change how your body performs for the rest of the day. And when that breakfast includes the right nutrients, the effect compounds in ways that become noticeable over weeks. Which brings me directly to the second mistake, and this is the one I most want you to walk away remembering. Most men over 50 are simply not getting enough of the circulation-supporting nutrients we discussed, magnesium, zinc, and arginine, through their daily diet. Not because they're eating badly necessarily, but because the foods that contain these nutrients in meaningful amounts are not the foods that typically show up in a rushed Western breakfast. Toast, cereal, a cup of coffee, none of these move the needle on mineral status. And day after day, week after week, that quiet deficiency accumulates into the symptoms you are feeling right now. The fix is almost absurdly simple. 1 tablespoon of raw pumpkin seeds added to whatever you're already eating in the morning. That's it. Stir them into oatmeal. Sprinkle them over yogurt. Blend them into a smoothie. They have a mild, slightly nutty flavor that doesn't dominate anything you add them to. And their nutritional contribution, magnesium, zinc, arginine, healthy fats, and a good dose of antioxidants, is genuinely significant for such a small quantity of food. Raw is important here, not roasted and salted, because heat and processing reduce the bioavailability of some of these key compounds. Raw pumpkin seeds, 1 tablespoon, every morning. Write that down if you need to, because that simple habit is the foundation of everything else I'm about to share. Now, the third mistake is one I touched on earlier but want to come back to directly because it affects circulation in a way that quietly undoes a lot of good intentions. And that is dehydration. Specifically, starting the day without properly rehydrating after a night of sleep. Your body loses fluid overnight through breathing, through temperature regulation, through the natural metabolic processes that happen while you sleep. By the time you wake up, you are in a mild state of dehydration, every morning without exception. And dehydration reduces blood volume. When blood volume drops, the heart has to work harder to maintain pressure. Circulation to peripheral tissues becomes less efficient, and the vascular responsiveness that we've been talking about, the ability of blood vessels to dilate quickly and fully, is compromised before the day has even begun. So before your coffee, before anything else, I want you to drink 1 cup of warm water with the juice of half a lemon and half a teaspoon of raw honey. Warm water absorbs more quickly than cold. Lemon provides potassium and a meaningful dose of antioxidants that support vascular health. And raw honey, not processed honey from a plastic bear, but real raw honey, brings its own trace enzymes and anti-inflammatory compounds that complement everything else nicely. This takes about 30 seconds to prepare and costs almost nothing. And when you drink it within the first 15 to 20 minutes of waking, you are giving your circulatory system a gentle, effective jumpstart before it has to manage anything else. Think of it this way. Your blood vessels in the morning are like roads that haven't been cleared yet after a night of cold weather. Warm, mineral-rich hydration is the first pass of the plow. It gets things moving. It prepares the system for the traffic that's about to come. Now, the fourth mistake, and this is one that I think deserves its own moment of honest attention, is overlooking magnesium as a standalone evening habit. We talked about getting magnesium through pumpkin seeds in the morning, and that is genuinely valuable. But for many men over 50, dietary magnesium alone may not be sufficient to correct a deficiency that has built up over years. And this is where magnesium glycinate, taken in the evening, becomes an important piece of the picture. 200 to 300 milligrams of magnesium glycinate taken before sleep supports blood vessel relaxation overnight, promotes deeper and more restorative sleep, reduces muscle tension that can interfere with circulation, and creates a calmer physiological environment for the hormonal processes that happen during sleep, including the testosterone release and the circulatory cycles that drive those natural morning erections we've been discussing. The glycinate form specifically is important because it is gentle on the stomach and highly absorbable, which means your body actually uses what you take rather than simply passing it through. And I will say what I always say. Please have a conversation with your own doctor before adding any supplement to your routine, particularly if you are managing other health conditions or taking medications. I share this because I genuinely care about your safety, and your physician knows your individual picture in a way that I cannot through a screen. What I can tell you is that in my clinical experience, patients who address their magnesium consistently, through both food and a well-chosen supplement, report improvements in sleep quality, morning energy, and vascular responsiveness that they often describe as feeling like themselves again. And that phrase, feeling like myself again, is one I never take for granted when a patient says it to me. Now, let me also say something about what you are eating for breakfast beyond pumpkin seeds, because the matrix of your morning meal matters enormously for circulation. High sugar breakfasts, and I mean the kind that are so common and so normalized that most people don't even think of them as high sugar. Sweetened cereals, flavored yogurts, fruit juices, pastries, white toast with jam. These cause rapid spikes in blood glucose that, over time, contribute to vascular inflammation. It is, as I said in my practice recently to a patient, like sending fine sand through your pipes every single morning. The damage is invisible at first, but it accumulates. Blood vessel walls become less elastic, less responsive, more prone to inflammation. And the downstream effects on circulation and erectile function are real and well documented. So the principle I want you to build your breakfast around is simple: protein, healthy fat, and mineral-rich whole foods with minimal added sugar. Eggs with some leafy greens, oatmeal with pumpkin seeds and a small handful of berries. Greek yogurt, plain, not sweetened, with seeds and a drizzle of raw honey. These are not complicated meals. They do not require a nutritionist or a meal prep service. They require 5 to 10 minutes and a small shift in what you reach for in the morning. So let me bring everything together now into the daily rhythm I want you to try, because I think it will help to hear it all in one place as a simple, connected routine rather than a list of separate things. You wake up. Within the first 15 to 20 minutes, you drink your warm lemon water with a touch of raw honey. Then you have your breakfast, something balanced, protein and healthy fat, with 1 tablespoon of raw pumpkin seeds stirred in. During the day, you move. Short walks, particularly after meals, keep blood flowing and keep the vascular system active and responsive. And in the evening, you take your magnesium glycinate before bed, keep your dinner on the lighter side, and give your body the calm, well-nourished environment it needs to do its restorative work overnight. That is the full picture. Morning hydration, a mineral-rich breakfast, daytime movement, and evening magnesium. 4 elements, all of them simple, all of them affordable, all of them grounded in real physiology. And what might you start to notice if you follow this consistently? Here is what many of my patients report in the weeks after making these changes. First, sleep tends to improve. Deeper, less fragmented, more genuinely restoring. Then, morning energy begins to feel different. Less of that heavy, dragging start to the day, and more of a sense that your body is actually ready to function. And for many men, gradually over the course of several weeks, morning erections begin to return. Not necessarily overnight, not dramatically, but quietly and consistently, in a way that feels like something is being restored rather than forced. One man I worked with in his early 60s came back after about a month and told me with a kind of quiet pride that he had started waking up feeling like he did in his 40s. He wasn't sure what to attribute it to. I told him it was his body responding to being properly supported. That's all. Nothing magical, just biology being given what it needs. My dear friend, I want you to hear this as clearly as I can say it. There is absolutely no need to feel embarrassed about what you've been experiencing. These changes are common, they are biological, and they are not a verdict on your masculinity or your worth. They are simply signals, your body's way of telling you that certain systems need a little more attention than they used to. And the beautiful thing is that those systems are responsive. I see it constantly in my practice. Men who had written off this part of their health as permanently lost, who made a few consistent, simple changes, and who came back weeks later genuinely surprised by how different they felt. Your body still has a remarkable capacity to respond when you support it properly. I believe that without reservation because I have watched it happen again and again. So here is what I want you to do. Tonight, before you go to sleep, set out a glass, a lemon, and a jar of raw honey on your kitchen counter. And find yourself some raw pumpkin seeds. Most grocery stores carry them, so that tomorrow morning, everything you need is already waiting for you. Start there. One morning. One small, intentional breakfast. And let the routine build from that first step. If this resonated with you today, if you are going to try this tomorrow morning, leave a comment below and write, "I'm trying this tomorrow." It genuinely helps me know that this information is reaching the men who need it, and it reminds you of the commitment you made to yourself today. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do, because every week I bring you this kind of honest, practical, clinically grounded guidance for men over 50, and there is so much more still to come. You deserve to feel vital, you deserve to feel strong, and you deserve to wake up every morning feeling like your body is on your side. Take good care of yourself, my friend. I will see you in the next one.